Hello IB English students. I made this video for the sub while I am out for a minor surgical procedure. I will be back tomorrow. So the sub is going to play this video and then kind of set you up, and then you'll be working independently for the remainder of the period. What you should have open on your Chromebook is this item that says Paper 2 Review Notes, and the sub should have given you a yellow index card. You'll need a pen or a pencil for the index card as well. Take a couple seconds to make sure that that's pulled up, and I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is our schedule for this week. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I observed when I looked at your final writing goal reflections, some things to kind of point out, and then we'll spend the majority of the time doing the review for paper 2, the format of the paper 2, as well as brainstorming activity for that. The activity that you start today in class, the due date and deadline for that is 10 p.m. this evening, so please stay focused. Tomorrow you'll have a chance to work in groups to construct your own paper 2 review sheet. Wednesday, there's no formal instruction because of the SAT testing in the morning. And then Thursday and Friday are a blind paper 2 simulation. Basically what I do is I give you a paper 2 prompt to respond to, and then you start that response on Thursday and then finish that same response on Friday. I obviously can't sit you down for the actual, I can't simulate the actual timing of the paper 2, so this is the best way I can kind of simulate that. Okay, so first, looking at your reflection from last week, there was that digital to analog question where it said, what could you do before as well as during the exam to make sure that you didn't continue to make grammatical mistakes, even if you don't have digital resources at your disposal. Here are a couple of really good ideas that people had written down, and I just kind of wanted to share them out just in case people felt stuck. One person wrote, before the exam, they could refer back to the blue sheet to remind them of what their common errors were. Another person said that they would review the past essays as well as read their sentences aloud. I have just one kind of caveat about that. That is an okay strategy, but you must make sure that you're doing it under your breath, right, so that nobody else can hear you. Otherwise, the person who's watching you take the exam might mistakenly think that you're sharing answers with somebody. So if you're going to do that, you do it so that no one else can hear it but you. Another thing, a really interesting insight that one other student kind of made was that most of their mistakes came from rushing through the essays and not properly allocating time for each of those sections. So basically what their plan was to practice hitting certain time benchmarks while they're writing their responses. That way they have plenty of time to go back and adjust those errors if they see them. Right? That way rushing doesn't become the issue as well. And then the last one that I got here says during the exam they could also create an outline of the prompt and write reminders about awkward phrasing errors, word choice errors, and past tense errors. Right, that was their 3 things that they were focusing on. You could also do something similar. Right, you will have some blank space on the actual prompt paper that you are definitely encouraged to do some brainstorming. Here are a couple more kind of suggestions for that one. One person had written, before the exam, they can make sure to get a lot of sleep so that they're well rested, which will prevent them from overlooking any grammatical errors, such as missing words in their essay, etc. Right? It's a really good strategy, just in general. This other student had said, maybe write a note at the top reminding them not to write in past tense when they're talking about literature. Again, same idea, really good. Just make sure that you erase it at the end maybe, or just write it on the prompt paper, not on the actual written response paper. And then one person had kind of written this, where they said that they would write down the types of mistakes that they could possibly make on a piece of paper, and then they would take them into the exam area with them and look back at the paper. You cannot do that. You cannot bring any outside papers, resources, etc. into the testing area. You will have a pen or a pencil and and your ID, and that's basically it. I'm sorry, I take that back. You will have your pen, right? There is no pencil. You have a pen, you can bring highlighters and your ID, but there's nothing else that you can bring into that testing area. So please don't write anything on a piece of paper and then take it out during the exam, or else they're just going to give you a 0. Okay, the next question was putting these items in sequential order. What should you do first, second, third, etc., and then kind of explaining it. The correct order is what you see on the screen, right? The first thing you should do is annotate the prompt, figure out what each of the prompts are asking, and then select the one that you want to work with. Then you would want to select your quotes for paper 1, or select like what evidence you want to be using or scenes, etc., for the paper 2 prompts. Again, and I'll go over this in a minute on the next slide, you're not expected to remember exact quotes from every book that you've read last year and this year, but you should be able to remember really important scenes and potentially like important quotes that characters say. The next thing would be to figure out what the content or what the focus of your body paragraphs are going to be, right? To kind of draft your topic sentences. Then after you do that, you should write up a brief outline. Again, there's blank space on the prompt paper where you could easily do that, and you're highly encouraged to do that. Then you would write your introduction paragraph, followed by your body paragraphs, and then the second to last thing that you do, right, when you're getting close to the end of your testing time, would be to go back to your introduction paragraph and write your thesis statement. Hopefully, you understand that the reason that you wait to write your thesis statement is because when you're in a rush and you're writing your body paragraphs, you might change your mind about what you're going to say halfway through your actual written response. If you leave space for the thesis statement and add it in towards the end, you can then guarantee that your thesis matches whatever it is that you ended up putting in your body paragraphs. That's going to get you a higher score in that criterion C area for the response. Then the very last thing that you would do with any remaining time that you have would be look over your response for any of those grammatical and structural errors that you know you wanted to avoid and fix them. Again, make sure that you're just putting a single line through it. Don't like excessively cross things out and accidentally rip the page or anything like that, right? Just one single line through it, write your correction above it. All right. I just jumped the gun, but according to IB, if you were to make a mistake on the test, you should draw a single line through the error and write the correct word or phrase above the original word or phrase with the line through it. This comes from the curriculum guide, right? They're worried that if you do want A, B, or D, you'd end up like tearing the testing paper, and then that makes it harder for you to kind of recover. It also makes it harder for them to read your writing, etc., right? Again, all you have to do is draw a single line through any errors and then write your correction above it. All right, so for the next part in your review notes, you're going to fill in the logistics part with me, and then at a certain point, I'm going to ask that I'll go over things with you, and then you're going to go back and fill in the part down here for the year 1 texts. So just kind of following along and filling this in as you go. So first, I think I'm going too fast. Let me move this back. Right, you are focusing on this part here where it says logistics. All right. So the time for the paper 2 exam. You have 1 hour and 45 minutes. There will be 4 prompts or 4 options that you are given. All of the options ask you to use 2 texts that you studied in the course to answer your chosen question via some kind of comparison and contrast. You can use anything that you've read in your year 1 and in the year 2 course, fiction and nonfiction, it doesn't matter. You only respond to 1 question. Again, there are 4 options or 4 prompts, but you only pick 1 to respond to. Quotes are not required, but recall of key characters, events, and devices are expected, and that's what that review sheet that we're going to put together tomorrow will help you with. You cannot use the text that you used for your IA last year or what you gave to me for your official HL essay submission. All right, so I'm going to keep going, and you're going to come back to this slide to fill out this part of your organizer. Here are all of the texts that you've read so far in this course. I need to add one in yellow. So in yellow is all the texts that we've read this year. The one that's missing is no exit. Even though you watch the film version, right? You were supposed to kind of like look at the play version side by side and use quotes, etc. So that technically is another text that you could use on the paper 2 exam, right? So maybe add that one in. All of the titles that you see here in white are what you did last year with Miss Dumont or with Miss Taylor. What you'll need to do after I'm done going through all the directions, you're going to go back to this week's slides, go to slide number 9, and copy and paste these into your organizer. This left-hand column is one text box, and then this right-hand column is a separate text box, right? They're not all together. So kind of make sure you get all of them in there. You may have to change the text color so that it'll be easier to read on your screen. Okay. So at the top, what I'd like you to do now, and there's a space for it in your organizer, it's that kind of like pink box as well, but at the top of your index card, please write your name and the name of the text that you cannot use for the paper 2. Right? You're then going to hand that index card to your substitute when you're finished. Take a minute or two to kind of do that now. I'm going to just kind of hold here. Write your name at the top. What did you use for your IA? What did you use for your HLSA, your official HLSA submission? I'm going to move forward in a second. If you can't remember exactly what you used for your IA, again, like refer back to the texts that you see here in white. Right? You also should be able to search your Google Drive and find your actual outline and script that you used. Okay, I'm going to move on to the last part. The very last part of your review sheet is where I give you several of you have these 4, paper 2 exam prompts, right? These were taken from an official IB exam workshop. Your job in your organizer, which looks like this at the bottom of that same document, is to select 2 texts that you would use to answer each of these prompts, and then on the right, fill in how or why those texts would be useful in answering that question, right? Like, what are the important characters, what important scenes, what important themes, etc. would you be discussing if you were answering these 4 prompts? As I mentioned, on Thursday, I'm going to give you a random prompt. It's very likely that it will be one of these 4 questions. The more you write here in your organizer, the more prepared you will be for the blind paper 2 simulation that I'm going to do with you on Thursday. So please put some effort into this. The last thing, again, is just a reminder. Today's notes are, the due date and deadline for that is 10 p.m. this evening. Make sure that you get those in. I'm going to go back really quickly. Let me do it this way. All right, just to reiterate, what you should do is go back, open this week's slides. You'll see them just like this. Go to slide number 9 so that you can copy and paste all the text that you did last year and this year into this spot here, right, where it says year 1 texts, this year the text that you did with me, and make sure that you add one more bullet point for no exit. And then you've got your space for putting in, like, what did you do your IA on, what did you use for your official submission, and then scroll down and fill out these boxes for these 4 prompts. The substitute will stop the video here and put this work screen up on the board for you. If you have any questions, please email me as soon as possible and get this assignment into me by 10 p.m. Thank you for watching. I will see you tomorrow.